Welcome to part 3 of my new oil painting where I'm trying to add depth. So I'm just trying to make shadows and shading to give the doodles and aspects the same kind of realistic dimension that you'd see in more of a realistic landscape painting. I'm not changing my style at all, but I want to create more of that feel that when someone looks at the painting, they kind of know where to look first. I was looking at some other paintings, from landscape ones, realism ones, and super abstract ones, and I kind of realized that every time I looked at certain ones, my eyes would be drawn to a specific part of it. And I realized that's because the person who painted it was able to create depth in it and kind of make it so they know that when someone looks at their painting, they know where to look. So I'm definitely not there yet. I realize a lot of my paintings, they have that kind of chaotic, busy feel, which I love. But I want to start having it where I kind of know where I want someone to look first. So I don't know where I want that for this painting. I think a lot of that will come later when I'm doing the final shading to create those dimensions that I want. But so far I'm just kind of doing what I do in my other paintings, where I'm doing the first few details and aspects and creating the sections that I want, and just kind of having it like a puzzle where each doodle kind of leads to the next one. I thought it'd be kind of cool to have that little triangle be an eye for two faces. So I'm gonna try to make it where it's the right eye for the face on the left and the left eye for the face on the right. And I like doing that in my paintings, kind of giving that feel where you look at one face and you realize it kind of blends into another. So I'm going through, like I mentioned, I wanted to keep the kind of city plane above it, so I'm just doing a few little lines of lighter colors. I don't want it to wash out the depth that I created with that, just because I did it more like a sketch for that one. And now I'm going through and doing some more colors and trying to add that kind of shading within it. I'll probably end up going over it soon and just try to add more of the dimensions just so I can kind of see where it's going. Probably do that, kind of spend a whole day doing that later. But for now, I'm doing a lot of the kind of sketches and doodles just to see what kind of space I'm working with. I like doing it where there's like a abstract kind of creature or monster kind of floating through or blending into a different doodle. So I'm doing that kind of throughout it, and probably do a lot more of the coloring in of the aspects earlier than I do with most of my paintings. Sometimes with oil, especially if I'm using a medium that thins the paint to make it dry quicker, I wait for it to dry before so it doesn't blend. But with this painting, I actually want it to blend because I want to do that shading. So it's kind of nice. I can get a doodle or a part of the painting filled in the same time I do it. So that part's been nice. It's just kind of learning how to work with the paint to give it that look that I want. In my recent paintings, I would have done a face where I do the mouth just 2D, but with this one I want to make sure that I'm doing it as if it's a shape with shadow. Same with the arrows. I think those are small little ways that I can add just a little bit of depth in a few of them to give it more of that dimensional feel. So I'm going through and painting some colors in some of the aspects that I've already done. And I like how it's looking so far. I really like how some of the colors are popping, and I'm using a lot of the brighter colors. I know that I'm going to be adding that shading later, and it might get a little bit darker. So I'm happy that the base is a lot of bright colors. I was thinking a little bit about what to do when I add some darker colors, and I realized the shading I'll just have to do backwards. So instead of making it really dark on the edges, because it's already dark, I'm gonna do it as if I'm just filling it in 2D, but then brighten it up and add some white to it and kind of give it that look. Again, I'm not expecting it to be perfect, and I know it won't, but even just a little bit of that realistic dimensional feel would be a good start for this painting. And at first, when I started doing oil paints, I really didn't like how it spread and blended easily, especially when I was using lighter colors and it was blending in the outline. But now that I'm doing this dimensional, kind of like the blending to give it the shadows, I actually really love it, because sometimes I'll do the border a little bit thicker when I know that I'm going to do it right away, and it's just a really easy way to kind of give that natural look if I already have a bit of the black ready to go and acting as an outline. I really like this purple color. I added a little bit of white just to brighten it up. And like I mentioned before, when I do the shading for it, I'll add more white. But I like it. The other one was more dark, the just regular oil paint. So I mix in a little bit. Sometimes I like the really dark purple, but I like giving it different shade throughout the painting, so I'll use a little bit of the dark one without any white, then I'll use some that has a lot of mixed colors, and I find that way you can use the same color a lot more than you usually would throughout the painting, and it doesn't seem like it's excessive. I've had some paintings where I do one large section with one color, and I don't like it because it doesn't look good in comparison to the other parts that are more busy and have a bunch of different colors. So I like mixing it up. That's why I do the doodles and lines like roads or something going through, just to give it that feel that there are sections. And I find that's kind of a fun way to do more doodles that I usually wouldn't do. Or I'll see something in a shape that's open, and that'll kind of inspire a new shape or a new kind of face that I can do. And some of those ones I really like, and I'll end up doing one accidentally that I'll have in the next 5 paintings that I do. So now I'm going through and coloring in some other shapes that I have done and doing the kind of first part of the depth and the shadows. Like I mentioned before, I'll go through at the end and probably multiple times throughout the painting and make sure that it has the depth that I want. But I like to do just a first little bit so I can see where I want the shadows for when I go in after. So I'm gonna end this part here, and I'll be posting the next part in the next few days. So thank you for watching.